Christianity is true, because that is you've seen with people like Apostate Prophet, that brings a lot of hate, a lot of death threats.
Right. And if it's not like literal apostasy, it's family or spiritual, even just mental apostasy, because I mean, you have to sacrifice so much. But I get some weird comments. A lot of people like commenting like, hey, we know where you are. But like I always say, I'm really happy that Texas has really good gun laws, and we're here. I say that joke a lot.
Yeah, Muslims have a problem with these gun laws here. I don't know what they're going to do. It's one of those good things we have here to make sure people are safe and they can pick what religion they want. So, right. But yeah, welcome to the channel. Let's talk a little bit about your testimony and how you left Islam. Have you gotten, though, first of all, the questionnaire from Muslims? Like, well, they're like, oh, have you left Islam? Tell me, what was the fifth surah that was ever revealed to Muhammad?
Yeah, what did you recite in the third sujood of the day? And I'm like, dude, like, so the biggest thing I'm against is like this like Muslim like heat check test of like, okay, how Muslim were you? The quickest way of like discouraging people from debates, but it puts you in the sport debate cycle. Like, we're here to talk about like raw testimony and changing. And so I made a video on this actually, but I was like, dude, I was Muslim enough to pray Tarawih shoulder to shoulder with my family and all my community every single day during Ramadan. I was Muslim enough to embrace the culture at school culture days and to wear my salwar to school to represent us. We were like a New York Christian family, so we even had more eyeballs on us with 9/11 happening. I was in New York at that time, and so
you said New York Christian family? You mean Muslim family?
Muslim family, yeah. Sorry, a New York Muslim family. Yeah.
See, they're gonna clip that now. You see, he admits he was Christian this whole time. He did not
exactly. 3-second out of context clip, no context. It's like you're ruined, man.
That's what they do. Yeah. So let's talk a little about it, because you're raised Muslim. You were Sunni, right?
Yes, Sunni Muslim. So we grew up Muslim. My dad is from Pakistan, and he actually lived the American dream. He came here when he was 19 with $60 in his pocket. Was a cab driver in New York City. He met my mom, who was actually an Indian woman, and he married her. She converted for him, and he built really an incredible family off of his Islamic faith. That was the pillar for him. He was the first one of. He had 16 siblings, so he had 9 brothers and 5 sisters. So 16 total in his family, with the parents and everything. And so he actually was able to come here and be the first of his family to get here. And he's been sending money back to them and taking care of everybody. And so his Islamic faith was a huge thing. And we took pride in that. And like I mentioned earlier, like during 9/11, my dad was actually working on Wall Street when the second plane hit the second tower. And so he was, in a state of panic and shock. One of my earliest memories was being in, I believe I was 3.5 at the time, being like pulled out of school, and like everyone's like shaken up, like what's really happening here? But that turned into this like almost pride of like, we're going to be the Muslim people that go into Western culture, especially being on Long Island in New York, that like we are not them. That doesn't represent us. That's not who we are, and that we're going to be leaders academically and physically and spiritually. And so I grew up with a lot of pressure around being academically excellent, physically excellent, a lot of performance to kind of rewrite that narrative for the Muslim culture. And as I got into my early 20s, really, a lot of it was just Muslim and performance until I was about 20 and I went to college. I kind of got this realization. I actually went to UT Dallas, which is a very, liberal, international, almost agnostic school. And I saw so many people who just had no relationship with God. And I was Muslim, and that really just like shook me to my core. And conviction, I was like, honestly, if like your faith matters infinitely, or it doesn't matter at all. Like it either is the most important thing in your life, or it really doesn't matter at all. And so I would actually become a prideful Muslim, where I was in a fraternity in college, and I would sport debate all of my fraternity brothers on couches at night, tearing apart their faith. But the truth was, I was really searching for like this confirmation that my faith was true, because there were so many Christians. Like there's 2 billion Christians and almost 2 billion Muslims. I'm like, if you're a true Muslim, you really don't believe in this coexist stuff that's out there, right? And so for me, I was like, man, why is this? Like, why is it really there? And so I needed a ton of conviction I was right. And I was getting that. I was getting the confirmation because I was stealing faith from these Christian men who were in their young 20s, honestly, not very, educated, neither was I, on what their faith was. And there was no real Christian to defend their faith that was in my realm of life. And so I was high and dry. I was this Muslim guy stealing faith away from people. But my fraternity vice president, I was actually a fraternity president. He was my vice president. So we were actually very yoked. He's what I call the first Peter 3:15 Christian, the always be prepared to defend the hope in your heart Christian. Because when I started coming at him with these like Muslim arguments, he was like, no, hold on. And he was so graceful. I mean, this is what it takes to like really disciple a Muslim man. But he was so graceful. He did not throw sermons at me. He did not like rebuke Muhammad in front of me and, you know, call him for what he is and his character and call all that stuff out about what he actually did. He met me with Jesus, and everything was unto Jesus. It was all ministry unto Jesus. And I was like, I was just seeing this guy walk around the library, and I didn't know of the fruit of the Spirit at the time, but the peace, the joy, the happiness, like just the pure love that this guy resonated with. I was like, why do I not have that? Like, why am I stuck in 4.0, get the GPA, get the physical achievement, and like perform good job, build a big family, but like it was all going to go away in 70 years, right? So like, what am I really up to here? And this triggered this like deep wrestling of faith where every night for 4 years in college, I would go through my classwork. I played college rugby. I'd finish practice. I'd go home and I would just scroll on my phone, reading every single article, newsletter. I studied guys like Nabil Qureshi. Actually, David Wood was a part of that ministry.
Yeah.
And then also just reading, I was like, you know, I have no academic integrity here. Like, I need to read the Quran and I need to read the Bible before I make any more decisions, because I had 600 opinions coming in from me from all kinds of social media, and I was exhausted, man.
Yeah.
And so really what happened was you pull on one thread in Islam and it leads to another and it leads to another and it leads to another. And you're kind of sitting there like, when is this going to end? You start learning about things like Muhammad and Aisha, right? About how he consummated her at 9 years old. You start to learn about how he spread religion through fear and through the sword. You start to learn about how this was the X factor, Michael, when he denied the crucifixion and the Quran denied the crucifixion. That to me was the breaking point, because that was the one thing I couldn't disprove. Because my buddy, my fraternity president, his name's Aaron. Aaron's a great guy. Me and him had this agreement that if either of us could convince the other of each other's faith, we would drop everything and follow that faith. And what he showed me was what would end up being the minimal facts argument, which is like, hey, let's just focus on just the crucifixion, because that's what the entire Christianity movement is kind of based on here. And let's try to disprove that. And for years, I would look at it and study it and debate people on it, and I just nothing. I couldn't ever deny the crucifixion. And when I learned that the crucifixion, by our best knowledge and best evidence here in 2025, happened, well, that was the main thing. And then that took the Quran completely out of the realm for me. I was like, well, nothing in this book I really can academically and with integrity respect, because that is so blatantly wrong. And that's what did it for me. Right.
Yeah, that is a big thing. And then you also have them saying in like Surah 9, like the Jews say Ezra is the son of God. No Jews ever anywhere have ever said that. You have them, you know, saying chainmail existed during the time of David. Again, completely wrong. And then they'll fixate on like something like, well, it says the Pharaoh existed during Moses and it was only a king during the time of Joseph, which they fail to recognize the fact that the word Pharaoh is a transliteration in Hebrew. It just, when it's transliterated into English, Hebrew, Arabic, it just becomes a general word for a ruler of an Egypt. And so if that was actually really an historical miracle, as they say, they should be using the actual ancient Egyptian terms, not transliterated terms in Arabic, like Pharaoh, which actually comes through Greek. So like, when they try to make these scientific or historical miracles, they really just sort of like stretch to make anything work or lie outright. And then they will ignore the blatant issues, like it says the sun sets in a muddy pool, or that, you know, semen comes from the backbone and the ribs, or, you know, like as you mentioned, denying the crucifixion, which is really hard to get around. That is a pretty big thing.
Yeah, even you kind of checkmate yourself.
Pretty much. Yeah. It's, oh boy, there's something like that. So let's go over, let's mention some specifics that you talked about. What are some of these other threads that started to unwind? You mentioned Muhammad's character and some other things. And also, by the way, when you're hitting your table, your camera's kind of bouncing a little bit. So just be careful with that.
Okay. So, yeah. I noticed that. I talk with my hands a lot and I realize I'm banging the table a lot, but I'm on my computer here. So another loose thread in it was just this special allocation that was giving to Jesus himself. Right? Like the kalimatuhu, right? The word from God. And this was a designation that Jesus Christ got that no other prophet got. How he was sinless, how he was virgin born, how he was the al-Masih, right? Which they don't really expand on in the Quran, but the man who is going to be really responsible for all of judgment, right? And so the character of Jesus was the second major threat. I was like, well, if he is the word and the spirit from God, right? That's in Surah 4, I believe. Why are we just treating him like a normal prophet if he is the virgin born son of Mary? And like, why are we not giving him the credit he deserves? And the only way that you can kind of discern what that means is by going back to the Injil and going back to the Bible and seeing, well, what was said about him. But this is another thing, is that they say that the Injil was corrupted, right? That there's no, it's not verifiable. You can't touch it and hold it. And like, you won't be able to discern from it as well. Like, it's been corrupted by people. Well, they never tell you when, where, or how that happened with verifiable evidence that is strong. And then when you read the Injil, and this is actually what did it for me, I actually read the book, which is a crazy concept for a lot of Muslims. Like, actually reading the book is just a wild concept these days. I was like, well, there's nothing, like, I tried to be as objective and as humble as possible. And I was like, there's nothing in this book that, like, what is the incentive for somebody to, one, corrupt, and then two, die for, right? Like, this isn't some crazy claim like you're going to be promised, everything in this world, and like, obviously the eternal kingdom will come to you through Jesus, but like, it's a hard thing to follow, right? It's a hard path to go down. You have to die to yourself. So like, why would somebody even try to corrupt that into that? There's no like political influence or power that would really come for that. And so I'm reading the Bible objectively, and I'm looking at the Quran, and there's just this stark contrast of like, what is the real mission of each of these religions, right? And like, what I ended up coming to the conclusion was a pretty fair one, was I don't think I really gain anything by becoming Christian other than the eternal kingdom of heaven, right? But like in this physical world, when I'm so used to being a performance-based Muslim, like I had no reason to be Christian, right? And then when you look at the things you have to lay down for that, right? Like for me, I had to lay down my family, my best friends, my community, my neighbors. I'd have to lose all this. And when I converted to Christianity, my dad got very hostile. He's a very strong man in his faith. He grew up in a very abusive family, and so he was physical. And so, he was very physical, or almost got physical with me. My mom, she cried for 3 years straight when she saw the cross around my neck. She would knock on my door and be like, "Is that the Christian cross? What are you doing, Sharik?" Right? And they'd be praying for me with all of our like doctors and lawyers. We grew up here in DFW, which is a pretty wealthy area, right? Like my dad was very successful. He was a corporate banker. And so all of these very educated, very smart people were praying over me and coming over to my house and saying, "Sharik, you're making a mistake." And that was very hard for me to deal with when I had the conviction that Jesus was going to save me. And so what that led to, man, honestly, was, well, I want to stay on this topic of the loose threats, because that's just one that kind of turns into a whole story. There was more with really just how Muhammad said that he didn't know where he would end up, that on his deathbed in, I believe, the Hadith, they were like, well, he doesn't know where he's going to end up. He doesn't know if he's going to be in heaven, which is, once again, at this point, I'd read the Bible and I was like, well, Jesus is very clearly pointing us to the way, the truth, and the life to get to the Lord in heaven. So I'm sitting here like, there are so many incongruencies that even outside of this like random like sport debate, like gotcha question, like Muslim heat check stuff that we were talking about, right? Like there's some core fallacy in here that I have not met a single imam or YouTube apologist or book that would ever properly and adequately answer this. And so that led me to, please.
I mean, it's a big thing in Islam. It's all about works. Whereas in Christianity, you're saved by faith through grace, or by grace through faith, I mean. And so it's like, we have assurance because Jesus did the work for us. But in Islam, how do you know? How much sins need to be burned off? Are you going to get everything right? There's a lot riding on you, which puts a lot of pressure and stress on you. And if Muhammad didn't know if he was going to make it, what chance do you have, a regular Muslim just doing his daily prayers, doing the best he can? What chance do you have?
Yeah, with all grace and love, I am screwed. I am a wretched 20-something-year-old dude in Dallas, Texas, and this beloved prophet is not, he doesn't know? Dude, I'm like, I'm not going anywhere. There's no turning back, you know? Especially practicing Islam my whole life, there was no like coming back to Islam, right?
Oh, so, yeah, it's insane. You also mentioned things like about what the Quran says about the Injil or the gospel. And this is something that David Wood has been working on for years. It's called the Islamic dilemma is what he puts out. And it's like, if the Quran is right, well, then Islam is false. But if the Quran is wrong, then obviously Islam is false. And it's, if you look at the Quran, never says the gospel or the Torah has been corrupted, like Surah 547. Let the people of the gospel judge by what Allah has revealed in it. And those who do not judge by what Allah has revealed are truly rebellious. So we as Christians are commanded to judge by the gospel. And you go down to verse 68, say, O prophet, O people of the book, you have nothing to stand on unless you observe the Torah, the gospel, and what has been revealed to you from your Lord. So the Islamic dilemma, if the Quran is false, then Islam is false. But if the Quran is right, then it's also false, because the gospel and the Torah contradict the theology of the Quran. It's because the Quran never confirms what modern Muslim apologists say, that the Gospels, the New Testament, Hebrew Bible, that has been corrupted. It says the opposite. It tells us to stand on what has been revealed in those things.
Right. And this is why we have to preach like academic integrity, because what we just did, a quick line by line breakdown of reading what the text actually says, we are not teaching that in a lot of Sunday schools. My mom was a Sunday school teacher for 25 years. Like, I was looking at her curriculum and I'm like, where are we discussing these things? Like, is it really just this heavy spirit of religion of he said, she said, so now I say? Is that really what it's come down to? Because like, why was that 5 years ago the first time I ever read that? You know, when I was rereading the Quran for my own comprehension. It's fascinating to me. It really is.
Yeah, for sure. You mentioned, so how's your family been since then? I know you talked about your mom did go to church with you once. Has there been any progress in there?
Yeah. So this is a hallelujah God story. So my mom is actually reading the Gospel of John right now, and I am calling her every night to do a Bible study with her, that's 5 years of prayer and petition from people that I knew, people praying for her before I was even Christian, all coming together. And she actually came. I would love to share this kind of almost prophetic message. She got this overwhelming feeling, which I think is from the Lord, that I was going to ask her to come to church with me on Easter weekend. And that was 2 hours before I actually asked her. And because she had that conviction and that word in her mind, she had the confidence to stand up to my dad and say, hey, I'm going to go to Easter with him. I want you to know, because I really feel like I have to go. And my dad, they came back from Mecca, from Saudi Arabia, from from pilgrimage on April 16th. I'm looking at my calendar here. So less than 2 weeks ago, they came back. And so there was this tradition, we have to hammer it in for 40 days and to really live into this, right? And so she came back and I was like, hey, Easter weekend, you should come with me. And that goes against everything that she just poured in so much money and investment to go travel out there for. And she came and she was taking notes the whole time. And she felt like she was called to be a spiritual mother, because we did testimonies at church. And she felt like such a heavy heart for those orphaned children who have like lost their families too. And it is just such a beautiful God story. I'm like, you sound so Christian right now, Mom. You have no idea. You have no idea.
Praise God for that. Yeah, that is great to hear. And we'll keep praying for that, because we want to see as many Muslims as possible come to know Christ. And so, yeah, we've been seeing a lot of it too. And so we're always happy to see that. Like we just saw, forget his name, but he was just on Pints with Aquinas. Name just went out of my head, but he was just on there. You've come out, AP, apostate prophet, was an atheist for 10 years, ex-Muslim. Now he is catechumen in the Orthodox Church. So we're seeing progress being made, and we want to keep that rolling. So when you just popped up out of nowhere, we were like, oh, let's get this guy on, because we got to keep the snowball going. We want to keep this going. Ishmael Yusuf, that was his name. Someone put in the chat. Beautiful. On Pints with Aquinas. Yeah. So a lot of great stuff. I also had another ex-Muslim on my channel like a month ago. He actually confronted Ali Dawah in Speaker's Corner in Britain. And Ali Dawah was like, yeah, you deserve death. And like, brave, just right up to him. Yeah. Credible. Had him on about a month ago. Incredible story. So really great stuff here. So yeah, awesome. Good stuff here. So
yeah, marketplace ministry and marketplace revival has been on fire. It is truly beautiful. It really is.
Yeah. So what we're going to do today, ladies and gentlemen, is we're going to review some videos from an ex-Christian who claims to be a Muslim. And you're going to see a clear contrast here between how they lie and don't do research versus what we have. Like when these ex-Christians convert to Islam, it's like they never read the Bible. It's like they don't even read the Muslim sources, like the hadiths or the Quran even. It's like they don't know any of this stuff. It's like they just converted for clout and for attention. And it's like, sure, maybe not all of them, but man, do they know nothing about this stuff. And you're going to see some of that today. It's incredible.
It is mind-blowing. Yeah, it's one of those things that you watch 6 seconds of and 40 alarm bells go off in your head at the same time. And you're like, can we just pause this? And like, what? And you go through the comments and they're getting affirmed so heavily. And you're like, no, don't, like, please slow down. Like, you are making some dangerous salvation claims for your people, and like, you're feeding them and they're looking up to you. So yeah, let's dive into it, man.
Yeah, it's insane. Yeah, if I saw like a new, like you, for example, let's say you were putting videos out and you were just basically lying stuff, like saying like Jesus said in the Gospels you should grow your beard like he does to be a real Christian. I'd be like, dude, stop that. That's not right. Like, but when these ex-Christian Muslims go and say crap like that, literal crap like that, Muslims in the comment section, oh, alhamdulillah, this is the proof. It's like, do any of you guys read this stuff? No, this is the proof. You don't read the stuff that you're actually claiming to have researched.
Yeah, and like for everybody watching this, like a good like standardized test is like, let's look at the scripture that they're quoting. Like if they're not pulling up the actual verse they're talking about, or the actual, even the Quranic scripture that they're talking about, like I would say scroll off as a friend, and mentor here. Scroll off.
We'll get into that. Let's get to some super chats here really fast. So Angel WVM says, first time I heard about this guy was in Jungle Book. He was trying to kill Mowgli. Why were you trying to kill Mowgli?
That was me, man. Guilty as charged.
You tiger, you. The problem with converting away from Islam is that now you have to enlist yourself in the ex-Muslim protection program,
which I will gladly do. You know, I'll tell you guys one thing. The number one thing that helped me in my spiritual walk was being with brothers who were walking with me and praying over me every single day. So I will gladly pay it forward.
Yeah. And yeah, again, as I said, it takes a lot of courage. I have spoken to ex-Muslims who don't want to come out because they have fear of being attacked by Muslims, of their family, this kind of stuff. And especially people that are like in the Middle East, like it's horrifying to think they would go through. Luckily, in this country, we got the Second Amendment, so you're safe at the end.
Right. It's a lot easier here in Texas rather than somebody who's in Saudi Arabia, right?
Yeah.
Like I can pretty easily say, hey, I have fear of God, not fear of man, but they have a real death penalty on their head.
Yeah, it's insane. And there was even that guy, he wasn't an ex-Muslim, but he was in Sweden and he was burning the Quran and they went in and killed him. Like he's an atheist, raised Christian. Yeah. And he's in Sweden. And yeah, it's insane what can happen. So, I mean, I totally get the fear. And the guy I was just interviewing a month ago, Ish, is what we were calling him. He had to move out of his neighborhood in Britain because he was hearing things that they were coming for him. So he had to get out of there. So it can be very dangerous for ex-Muslims for sure, which is it's a little bit different. You leave Christianity, you get a YouTube channel and you get showered with praise. You leave Islam, you get death threats.
Right.
Insane.
Right. And the more you persecute the Christianity, the faster it'll grow. I'll tell you that. People's hearts are on fire.
Yeah. Tertullian said that the blood of the martyrs is seed for the new church. Cole asked, was it Diha Al-Kabi banging Momo that got you?
No comment.
Yeah, that's one of David Wood's things. If he was just debating Robert Spencer and if Muhammad existed, and one of his arguments is that the stuff that Muhammad did is so embarrassing, they would never have made this stuff up. And one of the things was he's always alone with this really handsome guy called Diha Al-Kabi. And it's like they're alone and he's sleeping on his like lap. And then there's like when he's alone with Diha Al-Kabi, don't disturb them kind of stuff. And it's like really weird. Like, don't say it, but they get really close. It's creepy. Yeah.
Very weird.
Yeah. Joshua asked, did any of the Dawa guys try to reach out to you since you came out?
Yeah, I've been getting a lot of like, I don't want to say their army, but like a lot of people in the comments that are like really referencing a lot of these big channels. They're like, I'm getting actually invited to a lot of like random debates, but I made a video on that. Like if we're going to debate something, we're going to keep it very strict on like, I'm not going to play along with this gotcha question stuff that they really just run through and enjoy. Like we're going to go straight to the crucifixion and then break it down from there. So that's my public statement on that.
Yeah. But that's what they do. That's what they do. When you disagree with them, I challenge you. How dare you? How dare you? I challenge you. I humiliate you.
Check how Muslim you actually were. What, how do you spell Shahada? Like, what? Like, what part of Surah Al-Fatiha would you perform when you do this part of the prayer? Like, dude, I'll say it for you, but I'm not going to just because I don't want to, like, humor you on this because I'm not going to feed into this narrative of, like, intelligence being a standard of salvation.